Hi everybody, my name is Dennis and welcome back to another album review. Today we're reviewing the latest record from the experimental electronic duo Matmos, entitled Plastic Anniversary. Now this is definitely quite the odd album. It's very glitchy, it's very strange, it's very out there, and getting into this, especially some of the more intriguing parts of it, is almost like entering a foreign land where you don't know anything about the people, the culture, or the environment. It's just so foreign, everything about it. And it leads to a lot of really interesting tracks, especially in the first half of this album. I mean, we have the opening track, Breaking Bread, which is a very upbeat, happy, and although it has some odd moments to it, these just add to a lot of the personality of this track that just make it really happy-go-lucky and a really fun listen overall. On top of that, we have songs like The Crying Pill and Silicone Gel Implant. And these songs balance their strange electronic weirdness, for lack of a better term, with some really upbeat, fun, easy to move along with sounds to them. And I wouldn't call this accessible by any means, but it's definitely more enjoyable. Especially the song Silicone Gel Implant has some really dark and borderline disturbing moments that add to a lot of the emotion that goes into this track. And this is a fully electronic instrumental album. There are no vocals anywhere across the entire thing. And I think that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with having vocals. There's nothing wrong with just being instrumental. And this is definitely one of the better instrumental albums I've heard in a while. Like I was saying, Silicone Gel Implant is very dark, disturbing, yet still somehow peaceful to an extent. I also really enjoyed the song Plastic Anniversary, which throughout the song has these really soothing, calming, pitter-patter sounds of small pieces of plastic, almost like they sound like they're hitting a wooden desk. And it's a very relaxing song, especially with a lot of the more smooth, atmospheric, really almost ambient sounds that go into it, followed by some really fun, upbeat, fast-paced drums, and some almost distorted trumpet-like sounds. And I think this was a very strong track. It was one of my personal favorites on the album, and maybe my favorite of all the ones there. But it was a very fun track, and it closes off the first half of the album really nicely. Unfortunately, I wasn't as big of a fan with the second half of the album, with some definite misses here and there, like the song Fanfare for Polyethylene Waste Containers, which is, for as memorable of a title as that has, it's a pretty forgettable song instrumentally wise, and it just doesn't leave all that much of an impact like a lot of the previous songs do. And this is similar to a lot of the same feeling I get with one of the earlier tracks. It's called Interior with Billiard Balls and Synthetic Fat. And again, this has a very strange, memorable title that really just isn't that impressive overall. And I will commend them for using the clacking of billiard balls against one another in the song. That's definitely very creative, but it's just not all that enjoyable of an experience overall. There was also the song Thermoplastic Riot Shield, which I was definitely very conflicted on as I listened to it a few times, because there are definitely some parts of it that I really like. I like the dark, atmospheric, moody vibe that it gives. I like the very creepy, disturbing emotions that it gives the listener. But the one thing that really draws me back on this song is the horrid squeaking that comes from it. Because this song, again, props to creativity all the way, is played, a large portion of it, on an actual riot shield. They are rubbing, squeaking, doing whatever they can with a riot shield and sampling all these noises and making music out of it. And it's extremely creative. I mean, I never thought I would hear a song played on a riot shield this year, so props to creativity for sure, but that squeaking sound is so grating at points in this song that it really just prevents me from having a full enjoyment. Again, there are some really good parts to this song, but I just don't enjoy it all the way through. Also, the song The Singing Tube, I was not a fan of that one. It almost sounds like it's being played on a old washboard, just rubbing it up and down and up and down. And while a lot of the other songs, even if I'm not in love with the sounds, like take the Billiard Ball song for example, I'm not in love with it, but it still is manipulated in a way that makes it sound interesting and fresh. Well, The Singing Tube is just there. It doesn't really do a whole lot to change the sound. It doesn't edit it a lot. It doesn't add any interesting glitch effects like you see on a lot of the other songs, even on those that I didn't care for quite as much. And it was a really disappointing track that I'm thankful was then brought up by the following song, Collapse of the Fourth Kingdom, which is definitely one of the stranger tracks. But I love the tribal drums that go into it. I really enjoy the very strange, distorted, out there trumpet sections. And I really like the strange pace that this song brings. It's definitely a very chaotic, a very jumbled, and a very dense track that has a lot of layers to uncover. But each of these layers presents a very new and interesting sound that you don't see anything like it anywhere else on the album. And it's definitely one of the odder tracks, but I definitely enjoyed it quite a bit. And it's definitely one that stood out to me as I listened through it, because it's just so odd. And really all of the tracks on here are wonderfully odd in their own way. Again, even the tracks that I don't enjoy quite as much have a very distinct uniqueness to them that really makes you think, that's a really great concept. And even though I don't think the execution was always top-notch, I think there was a lot of thought put into what this music would be like, and I think that's very commendable. I will say I really wasn't a fan of the song Plastisphere. Now, it is another calm, relaxing song similar to Plastic Anniversary, but it takes those pitter-patters and softens them, and then it plays for 4.5 minutes. And even though I think it was fine, as it was occasionally spersed through the song on the song Plastic Anniversary, the title track, on here, just playing it through the entire song without any sort of diversity, without any sort of change, without any sort of thing to keep me or what I would assume other listeners engaged, really makes this a boring listen. And it was definitely a weak point on the album for sure, and I was really disappointed to see that nothing was done with it. It just sounds like they sampled a sound, maybe recorded it in a few different ways, maybe, I don't know, dropped a few more little plastic whatevers on the table sometimes, maybe dropped a few less other times, whatever they were doing. But it just doesn't change. And it would have been fine maybe if it was just a few seconds, like the track on the album extending to the Plastisphere to GJ237B, which is only 11 seconds long, and although not all that memorable, it's 11 seconds. I don't really have a lot to go on. And I wish it would have been maybe not that short, but maybe just like 30 seconds or a minute to give a nice, peaceful outro to the album. But at 4.5 minutes, it goes on way too long for what it's worth. And it's really just a bore to sit through. And so overall, this album was really enjoyable, though. Again, there were a lot of really fun tracks on here, and even those that I didn't care for as much, I was able to really appreciate the thought, emotion, and concepts that went into it that really reduced my dislike of them, to where I can respect, hey, that was a really great effort to try something new, something inventive, something really fun and strange. And although there were their occasional hits and there were the occasional misses, this is a really good album overall that especially if you're fans of experimental or electronic music, that I definitely wouldn't miss. I'm feeling a strong 7 on this album. Again, be sure to check it out. There are a few duds, but it's really worth it just to hear this entire thing through, because it's quite the unique experience. So, be sure to tell me how wrong my opinion is, as always, and I'll see you in the next review.